thousands of years, the unforgiving Arctic landscape has been home to the indigenous Sami people.
We are walking in the footsteps of our ancestors.
After centuries of forced assimilation and discrimination, the Scandinavian Sami fought for a voice to represent them to government.
One of the strongest weapons in this struggle is the Sami Parliament.
But it's now facing its biggest challenge yet.
We need to be honest about the fact that we need to produce more renewable electricity.
Everyone is moving into electric vehicles, and unless these sorts of projects are approved, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be able to transition.
Many Sami fear the green transition is putting their ancestral lands at risk.
You could kind of call it green colonization, and it's because those climate measures you're taking on behalf of the world population, unfortunately, our future is ruined by those measures.
Here in Scandinavia, the Sami have had parliaments to represent their interests to government for decades. Now, as Australia prepares to vote for its own Indigenous voice to Parliament, I've come to see how they work. What does it mean for the Sami to have a voice? Is it loud enough to be heard over the demands for development? And are governments really listening? On a crisp Arctic morning, an awe-inspiring event is underway. Reindeer are being gathered for the autumn corral, a chance for the herders to check their animals before the winter migration.
Hej! Hej, trevligt!
Ja. Och vem är ni? Är Matilda? Lauren heter jag. Ja, och vad heter du? Neila. Lauren heter jag. Och du är? Erik. Tack så mycket.
Sami reindeer herder Karen Kvarfotnia and her children are hiking up to the annual event, and I've been invited to join them.
Och hur många djur kommer att slaktas idag?
Det vet jag inte. Men jag tror kanske inte att det är så mycket som slaktas. För att vid den här tiden på året börjar handjuren att brunsta. De förbereder sig för parning nästa generation.
Jaha.
Och då smakar deras kött jättedåligt.
The path we're taking was forged by Karen's ancestors hundreds of years ago. Today, she walks in their footsteps and her children in hers.
Min familj har sysslat med renskötsel sedan urminnes tider. Alltså markerna de är så mycket mer än bara landet vi ser. Markerna vi ser, skogen som växer. Det är ju också ett kulturlandskap. Det här är ett område och marker som har använts i generationer.
After 2 hours, we arrive to the bells and grunts of 1,000 reindeer. For the little children, it's an important lesson in their history and maybe their future.
Renskötseln lärs från äldre generationer till yngre. Det är ingenting som man kan lära sig i skolan eller hemma vid köksbordet, utan det förutsätter att barnen är med. De måste se, de måste prova.
Some reindeer are fitted with GPS trackers, a modern addition to an ancient livelihood. Others just get a checkup.
Har du hittat några?
Nej, jag har inte än. Nej.
Det är lite svårt när de är blandade.
Ja, det är ju lite som att leta efter en nål i en höstack. Ja.
Precis.
De jag har kan vara där borta, så står jag här. Så man vet aldrig. Det är bara att titta och titta.
A few are slaughtered. But this one is lucky. All he's losing are his antlers. Male reindeer usually drop their antlers naturally before winter. But if they're castrated, they need a little help.
Renen är inte alltid den samiska kulturen, absolut inte. Men det är en jätteviktig grund i den samiska kulturen.
For generations, Sami reindeer herders followed their animals with the seasons across vast swathes of land, living off their meat and skins. But today, only around 10% of Sami in Sweden are reindeer herders.
Ja, ibland så tänker jag på, tänk om jag är sista generationen som har möjlighet att bedriva renskötsel och få använda de här markerna och förvalta dem till kommande generationer. Och det gör mig hemskt ledsen.
The Sami call their ancestral land Sapmi. It stretches from Russia's Kola Peninsula across the borders to Finland, Sweden and Norway. Under Swedish law, the Sami have the right to use land and water for reindeer grazing. But as Sweden moves to reduce its carbon emissions, a wave of green development is sweeping across the Arctic.
När markerna försvinner och börjar användas till annat än renskötsel, och ju mer trängda vi blir, desto större risk tror jag att det finns för en kulturell kollaps.
For centuries, the Swedish state suppressed Sami language and culture, but the Sami fought to have their voice heard. The Sami Parliament was formed in 1993. Its head office is here in Kiruna, in the shadow of the world's biggest underground iron ore mine. Despite its name, the Parliament has no legislative power. It's an elected representative body which advises the Swedish government on Sami issues. But it's not truly independent from the state. It's overseen by a government ministry.
Kombinationen mellan att vara en statlig svensk myndighet och ett folkvalt organ är komplicerad. Därför att å ena sidan så måste man följa de regler som staten, Sverige, sätter upp. Å andra sidan så ska man vara en röst för det samiska folket.
Sami like Karin are frustrated over the limitations of the Parliament. Until recently, the government hasn't been obliged to consult it, although that's set to change with a new law that requires consultation on matters of special significance.
I believe it will make a difference, but it's not enough, and it will be needed to improve that. But I thought it was a good development when it was presented.
Stefan Mikaelsson is a member of the Sami Parliament and its former president. He says the key issue is Sweden's refusal to ratify a UN convention that would compel the state to not only consult, but to do so with the goal of achieving consent. Why do you think Sweden hasn't ratified ILO 169?
Because they don't think indigenous peoples have the same human rights as other peoples.
You think that's still the case in Sweden?
Yes, that is still the case in Sweden. And they talk about the Sami people, but they never talk with the Sami people.
He says the current wave of green development on Sami lands is like nothing he's ever seen.
It is a huge, huge threat. These decisions that comes from the Swedish Parliament and Swedish government never says, after this, it's enough. They can take anything they want at any time they want.
One of the proposals being fought by the Sami Parliament and Karin Sami village is here in Vitangi. The surrounding forests are critical to reindeer grazing and a key migration area. But they're also home to Europe's biggest untapped deposit of graphite, an essential material needed for electric vehicle batteries. Today, Karen is visiting the proposed mine site as part of a Land and Environment Court hearing.
Det här området ser ju vi framför oss påverkas också, inte bara av transporterna, utan även dammning, ljus, seismisk aktivitet och så vidare. Ser vi också en klar negativ påverkan på renskötseln.
Balloons float above the tree line, marking out the planned site. The company proposing the mine is Australian-based Talga Group. Chief Operating Officer Martin Phillips is keen to stress the billion-dollar project's value to the green transition.
This is the highest grade of graphite. It's an important part of the battery supply chain for Europe.
While it waits for the court's approval, the company has started test drilling.
We operate in a way where we have been doing our exploration work in the summer, then leaving and ensuring that the reindeer can come in the winter. So our relationship actually at the local level has been, I think, very good in order to communicate and engage.
När Talga säger att de har bra dialog med samerna, vad tycker du?
Vi har förlorat alldeles för mycket marker till alldeles för många företag. Jag ser ingen möjlighet att vi kommer kunna backa. Och hittills har inte Talga presenterat någonting som skulle kunna få oss att ändra uppfattning.
If you're not given that informed consent from the Sami villages here, will you still proceed with digging?
We'll still proceed with digging if the court gives us that permission too. We're following due process and we're following all of the laws and the legislation that Sweden has laid out for us.
The inspiration for the Sami Parliament in Sweden came from across the border. The Sami Parliament in Norway is also fighting a wave of green development as the country strives to meet its ambitious climate targets. It's shaping up to be the biggest battle since the Parliament was formed more than 30 years ago. The birth of the Sami Parliament in Norway had its origins here on the Alta River, an important place for wild salmon fishing and reindeer herding. In the late 60s, the Norwegian government produced a plan to dam the river and build a massive hydroelectric power plant. The original proposal would flood the nearby Sami village of Matsi. The Sami fought back.
It was hunger strikes. It was protesting by people physically trying to hamper the construction workers. They had formed a human blockade of some sort, and it went on to the point where Norwegian government, they did send 600 police officers to Alta. It did go on for very many years, actually, almost 20 years. It did evolve to become the largest civil disobedience case in Norway.
Silja Karina Mwatka was a little girl at the time of the Alta protests, but she remembers the shockwaves the movement created.
After 150 years of Norwegianization, which was a spoken politics to eradicate our culture and our language, it was hard, I guess, even to try to think. The thought on rioting, I think it was hard for people.
A scaled-back version of the dam was eventually built in 1987, but the conflict would change the course of Silja Karina's life and Sami history.
You could say that they didn't win the battle, but it became clear for the Norwegian government that they need a political body where the Sami community voice could be heard.
2 years later, the Sami Parliament in Norway was formed. Today, Silja Karina is the president.
We are a political elected body like any other political elected body. We have our disagreements, but when a decision is made in this hall, the Sami people has stated their opinion.
Now, Norway's Sami Parliament is facing a battle to protect these waters. The Nussir mountains surrounding this fjord contain the country's biggest deposit of copper, another critical material needed to help power a green future.
The plan is to release the tailings from the mining project into the fjord. And it is a national salmon fjord also.
Torulf Olsen is a Sea Sami fisherman whose livelihood and culture depends on the fjord.
The connecting to the water is in your blood. You have to go to the sea, you have to see the sea, you have to feel the sea. Even if it's cold, you have to have it on you. You have to wash your hands in it, you have to wash your face in it. So, yes, it's a special culture.
This area has been mined before, in the 1970s. Some of the infrastructure remains and is today being used as a quarry. Torulf remembers what happened to the fish the last time tailings were released into the Reppa Fjord.
We couldn't eat the fish. It was even like green inside. A lot of copper inside. It looks like a lot of copper inside. I tried to taste it. I can remember the taste. No. We had to go to meatballs after that.
Are you expecting that that will happen again with this new project?
Yeah. The production will be approximately 10 times higher.
The company plans to pump around 2 million tonnes of tailings per year into the bottom of the fjord, but says they'll be contained using new technology. Torulf is sceptical.
Where will the tailings be dumped?
Tailings will be just underneath us.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Wow. And what will be in the tailings?
Oh, it's usual. Heavy metals, poisoned heavy metals, and chemicals, which are poison.
The Sami Parliament has been helping Torulf and other local Sami fight the proposal.
One of the strongest weapons in this struggle is the Sami Parliament.
All the company needs now is a final building permit. The Sami Parliament was consulted about the mine, yet in spite of its opposition, the project was given the go-ahead.
You could kind of call it green colonialism, and it's because those climate measures you're taking on behalf of the world population, unfortunately, our future is ruined by those measures.
Local Mayor Terje Wikström is also Sea Sami. He supports the mine and thinks the Sami Parliament should stop opposing it.
The Norwegian government has given the Nussir all the approvals, and I find it quite hard that the Sami Parliament still is fighting against the project. I don't think it's democratic, and I don't think it's right. We can't have just reindeers or fishing industry in this area. We have to have other industries.
So you think Sami culture can coexist with mining and development like this?
Yeah, what we are now experiencing in our area for many years, that it would be worse for the culture if there would be less people here, less and less people.
For Sea Sami fishermen like Torulf Olsen, history makes it difficult to have faith in the Norwegian government.
Yes, the money talks. The money talks. The money wins.
If your fears come true, what would happen to the Sami fishermen here?
We disappear. We disappear from here, from this fjord. We surrender. We surrender.
It's not just Sea Sami fishermen who are worried about what will happen if the Nussir copper mine goes ahead. Reindeer herders whose animals graze in the area are also concerned.
The Sami reindeer herders are semi-nomadic, so I'm heading off into the mountains
to meet one who's already started his winter migration. Hopefully I can find him. The vast landscape of Norway's Arctic tundra feels desolate and hostile to life, but it sustains the Sami and their reindeer. In the depths of winter, temperatures can plummet to minus 40 degrees. Herders once used skis and sleds to migrate with their animals. Now it's mostly snowmobiles and ATVs. Today, the all-terrain vehicle is living up to its name. Finally, we find the man we've come to see, reindeer herder Nils Mathis Sara.
Boris.
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 Här är skog. Ser du? Men här ser jag vann. In i skogen.
Nils Mathis and his herd have just arrived here from his summer grazing land where the Nussir copper mine is planned. They'll stay until the snow comes and the lakes freeze.
It's harder than it looks.
Vær nu försiktig, vi har inte plast.
I don't know if I'm cut out for this. There we go. Finally. Är det inte lite ensam ibland här uppe på fjället?
Nej då. Nej, det blir man inte. Man jobbar dygnet runt. Och man har ju massvis av kompisar här runt. Regnen ägnar sig lika gott som kompisar. Man släpper krangla med oss.
He says the last time they mined the area, his reindeer suffered.
Och de kör med sådana stora dumper där borta, upp och ner hela tiden. Så var det sån sväverstöv och så regnbete, de kände ju egentligen. De kom ju och bete där i området där och så skedde sånt att på vintern, utöver vintern och våren så såg vi resultat. Många sådana kämpegoda fejter som fick långvinter. De döda.
You have to be resourceful to live in these mountains.
Har du kniv?
Nej, det har jag inte. Men jag har ox.
Ja, visst du klarar du skär dig med ox.
Living sustainably off the land has allowed the Sami to keep using it for centuries.
Det var jättegott.
Det gröna skift, det blir ju inte grön skift för oss. Det blir så heller brun skift. Jag måste säga personligen, jag känner inte på det de pratar om. Det virker sånn att allt ska ödeläggas. Och så kan de kalla det för grön skift.
Nils Mathis's herding district is considering legal action over the copper mine. In the meantime, he's grateful the Sami Parliament is continuing to lobby the government and investors to try to stop it.
Jag tror att utan sameting så hade det varit ända värre för oss. Men med sametingen och den kommer på banan så nu är det mer att nu har vi ju liksom lite hopp om att de klarar att jobba för oss samer.
Unlike Sweden, the Sami Parliament in Norway is independent from government and it receives double the funding. Norway has also ratified the UN Convention which enshrines a right for the Sami to be consulted.
We have achieved a lot of things because it is a possibility for us, of course, to organize our own processes, develop our own politics, and also do our own decisions. So this is a good thing.
Norway, a country that built its wealth on oil and gas, is racing to go green. It's hard to walk down the streets of Oslo without seeing an electric car. It's got the highest per capita electric vehicle ownership in the world, and everything from the ferries to the trams run off the country's renewable energy grid. I've come to the Ministry of Energy to see how the state is balancing its green goals with its commitment to indigenous rights. Andreas Bjelland Eriksson is the State Secretary of Norway's Energy Ministry.
We have a goal of reducing our national emissions by 50 to 55% by 2030, and then going to net zero in 2050. We need to be honest about the fact that we need to produce more renewable electricity. We need to utilize the possibilities that we can, but we need to do it in a way that respects indigenous rights.
The President of the Sami Parliament calls it green colonialism. Is it green colonialism?
From our point of view, the important thing now is to work as close together as possible with the reindeer herders, with the Sami people, to be able to find a framework that can last over time, that can be a good framework that also takes into account the rights of the Sami people. And that is our goal right now.
The green transition must be a just transition. I feel that it is really important that we safeguard human rights and that it is a just transition. You can't choose solutions that, for us, it gives us no hope for a future.
In Sweden, Karin Kvarfort-Nia wishes her Sami Parliament had a more powerful voice.
Vi är ett folk som är vana vid att kämpa. Sen koloniseringen av Sápmi började har vi fått slåss och kämpa. Så det är nästan som att det är i ens DNA. Det vi vill göra är ju att förvalta markerna. Det är att bedriva renskötsel. Att leva våra liv. Så ja, jag är trött på att slåss. Men jag tänker att det finns inget alternativ. För det är ingen annan som slåss för oss.
Across the border, Nils Mathis Sara honours his land through song. Temperatures on the tundra will soon plummet, and the Arctic nights will get longer. His greatest hope is that the parliament that represents his voice to those in power will be heard.
Hvis här i Norge hade varit, eller i Norden här, att det hade blivit sån att sametinget ska falla bort igen. Jag tror att det blir mycket värre där för samer.
And he has some advice from the Arctic to Australia.
Ja, hvis det är någon som följer att de inte blir hört så är det sånt. Då borde man kanske satsa på ett sånt system som kan prata för en gruppering, sån som vi har det här. Det hade varit mitt råd.
Mailu ja rakkaas ja nobel